Welcome back to Hannity. So we have more breaking news in the story regarding Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz's former IT aide, Imran Awan. The Daily Caller's Luke Rosiak, who will join us in just a moment, has a new report. It reads in part, exclusive police report indicates Wasserman Schultz, IT aide, planted computer for investigators to find. And that's not all. Fox News has confirmed that Imran Awan's wife, also a former House Democratic IT staffer, has struck a deal with federal prosecutors. She, in fact, will return to the United States from Pakistan and face charges. Here now from the Daily Caller, Luke Rosiak, and from CircaNews.com, our friend Sarah Carter. All right. This is why this is important, Luke. I want to start with you. So you have a computer, a laptop. We remember the big fight that she had with the Capitol Police officer over the laptop, and she's being rude to this guy. What's interesting is it appears this IT aide left it in a phone booth in a building where he had no real business of being in. That wasn't even the building where her office was. And it says username Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It sounds to me like there might be a little separation here, and maybe he didn't think Debbie Wasserman Schultz was going to protect him and thinks there's something incriminating on that laptop. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's laptop was found at 3 a.m. With a letter to the U.S. attorney on top and then a copy of Imran Awan's ID. And it was in a phone booth where, yeah, he would have really no business being skulking about late at night in the House office building with his boss's laptop. Like you said, she has said first it was her laptop and then she changed her story and said it was his. The username on it is hers. So it's really frightening implications that this now indicted IT staffer went and took this laptop and left it seemingly intentionally for police to find.
And this is the guy that she knew double billed, had people with no IT experience from his family. One guy worked at McDonald's, apparently was fired. Another guy at a car dealership, no evidence of any IT experience. But she kept him on even after she knew he double billed. And then there are reports that we have the busted up hard drives inside this guy's garage. And then he tried to obviously skip the United States.
A few months after the DNC is hacked, the Capitol Police tell her that he's suspected of cybersecurity violations, and Wasserman Schultz has acknowledged that. She said she was aware that he was accused of what she called data transfer violations. So she keeps him on, and he uses this continued access to her office building to take this laptop and plant it for police to find. And she still keeps him on, and then goes before the police budget board and threatens consequences if they don't return it. So you have to ask, is it possible that her judgment is this bad? Are these the actions of someone who's just been hacked and says they take hacking seriously? Could she have really continued to believe, as she said, that this guy was somehow being framed when she's the victim here? It's her laptop that went missing. And she's given conflicting explanations that she hadn't addressed. First, that it's hers and cops can't look at it because it's got sensitive congressional information on it, and then that it's his, but she just wants to protect his rights.
Sarah, let me go to you on this. You look at the bizarre nature of all of this, and then you couple it with, okay, what could Debbie Wasserman Schultz wanting to hide here? Why was there busted up hard drives in this guy's government hard drives in this guy's garage, as reports indicate? And then I got to ask myself, do you think in any way it could be connected to what happened and she was removed as the DNC chair on the eve of the Democratic convention? What is she hiding here?
Luke's story is explosive. It's probably one of the biggest stories of the year that no one's really paying attention to, at least in the mainstream media. And yeah, we've got to ask ourselves, was she blackmailed by these guys? I mean, Luke wrote a very intensive story where he even interviewed their stepmother who was blackmailing them. And then we have to ask ourselves, what were they sending to these overseas servers? This is a huge national security risk, Sean. And going back to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, what is she hiding? I don't believe that Debbie Wasserman Schultz doesn't really understand what's going on, that she believes this is Islamophobia. I think what happened here, and in discussing this with Luke, I think what happened here is that, you know, he was threatening her. And this is something that everybody should be looking at, the FBI as well as the Capitol Hill Police.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one other question. Dana Rohrabacher, Sarah, was on the show last night. 99% certainty that he believes Julian Assange, in fact, would be able to prove there was no Russia-Trump collusion. On top of that, the FBI director just said today he's seen no evidence that Trump interfered with the Russian probe. Then one has to ask the question, what is Robert Mueller doing? What is Comey doing? Lindsey Graham said he wants Comey to testify again because he smells a rat.
Well, he needs to testify again, I believe. I mean, we've had a lot of questions. We know now that all the way back in April, Comey was already writing Hillary Clinton's exoneration. So we need to know why he was doing that. And at the same time, President Obama was saying the similar thing. So was he taking directive orders from President Obama? That's very interesting because he's accused President Trump allegedly of asking for loyalty. So there's a lot of questions there that need to be answered. And as far as Julian Assange, Sean, this is so important. He is the one person that could actually answer this question. So I believe it's the duty of the special counsel to reach out, to find out what Julian Assange knows, and then eventually to make that public so that we all know it. That's the only way to resolve this.
Good point. All right, Luke, great work. Sarah, great work as always. Thank you both. And we have more Hannity right after this break. All right, we hope you'll stay with the Fox News channel. Continuing coverage of Hurricane Irma. That is all the time we have left this evening. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Florida. If you're in an evacuation zone, please evacuate. We want you safe, and we want you back here. The show will always be fair and balanced, never the establishment media. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. And welcome back to Hannity. So earlier today, the president issued a tweet reassuring DACA's so-called dreamers, writing, quote, "For all those DACA that are concerned about your status during the 6-month period, you have nothing to worry about, no action." Now, clearly, President Trump is trying to restore the rule of law and the Constitution and not usurp the powers of the legislative branch. But some Democrats, they're just hell-bent on painting the president as unhinged. It never stops. Joining us now, the author of the 12-week bestseller, #1 New York Times bestseller, Understanding Trump, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich, who, by the way, also is launching in early September, in about a week or so, a new online series entitled Defending America. All right, I want to get to that in a second. Let me just stay on the hurricane, if I can, for 1 minute, Mr. Speaker. This is important. You know, if the only thing the media can criticize is Melania's shoes, and that's basically all they had, and you saw the governor, and you saw local officials, and you saw the federal government really come together in an organized fashion with next to zero complaints. And I've talked to people in Florida. They are working and coordinating in a similar fashion there. So I got to expect the same results. Doesn't that tell you something about where people's mindset is?
Well, look, I think the country is delighted and encouraged that you could have effective government that works, and you could have everybody, state, local, federal, pulling in the same direction. You could have professional competence, as the president said a few minutes ago. You have people who are committed to doing their job. You have the American military being mobilized. This 1-2 punch of Houston and Louisiana and now Florida is probably as big a natural disaster punch as we've had, certainly in my lifetime. I feel it at a direct level. I have a daughter who lives in Florida, and she's right in the middle of this. And, you know, it's very sobering when you look at the size of this storm and the power. But I think it is encouraging. And by the way, let me just say on behalf of the president, I think part of the reason he cut the deal he did yesterday on a bipartisan basis to get 90 days funding, and I think the Senate actually has already moved today on this. He was trying to continue a momentum of being together, of doing something together, and of showing that the American government can act quickly. If they can get the money out of Washington to Houston this week, setting the stage, by the way, for potentially challenges next week in Florida, I think that's another signal to the American people that maybe some things are coming together, and maybe President Trump, who has a natural background in construction and in property and in looking at this sort of thing, maybe he, in fact, is going to be able to pull the country together the way they came together in Texas.
You got to hope so. I look at this storm, and I literally, it's chilling to see the cities that will be impacted. The entire state is engulfed by this hurricane. This is going to be, as people are predicting, could be one of the worst storms ever. You know, both of us are conservative. We believe in limited government, greater freedom, more responsibility, opportunity society. And the federal government plays an important role, safety and security. And hopefully they don't get in the way of prosperity, which I would argue they often do. But isn't this one of the times that government can really step up and help people, like in Texas, like in Florida, and government worked this time. It's nice to see it works occasionally. I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Look, I always try to remind people that the Founding Fathers developed a constitution for a limited but effective government. They didn't want a sloppy government. They didn't want an incompetent government. They wanted it to be limited in order to protect our freedom and our privileges and our rights as citizens. But when it moved, they wanted it to move very effectively. These were people who, after all, had practiced for 8 years the art of war against the British Empire. They knew what it took to be effective. And I think they would look at what's happening in Texas and say, you know, the system's working at every level. You have local leadership. You have state leadership. Governor Scott's getting great marks for being an again, he's an entrepreneur like Trump. And you have federal leadership with President Trump. And it's all pulling in the same direction. And I think that's what's encouraging the American people. After all this gridlock, all this nastiness, all these vicious stories, here you have the American government coming together and the American people coming together in a positive way.
I've been very outspoken and disappointed about the Republicans not keeping their promises. From my perspective, and you know, having been Speaker and having accomplished a lot as Speaker, I would argue that they have 14 weeks to really get their act together. And that would include changing the tax code, 7 brackets to 3, repatriated money from multinationals, trillions, corporate cuts, middle-class tax cuts, small business cuts, energy independence, build the wall. I'm not that overly optimistic that these guys are going to get their job done. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm moderately optimistic, particularly on what I think is the biggest assignment. And I really like what Secretary Mnuchin has been saying in his various television interviews. I like very much what Speaker Paul Ryan said today in an interview or a press conference, I guess it was. Their commitment is to get all of this done, hopefully by Thanksgiving. To be able to give the American people, as Mnuchin described it yesterday, a tax form about the size of a large postcard for the average American. I mean, if they can pull that off, if they can get to a 15% corporate rate, if they can get to a big tax cut for small business, this would be the achievement. If I were them, I would mark every week against getting the tax cut done. We can get everything else done once the tax cut's done, but let's get it signed by Thanksgiving so that the first quarter of next year, you see a real surge of economic growth, probably starting, frankly, with the Christmas period, because if people see a big tax cut coming, you're going to have a pretty big Christmas in this country.
Yeah. You know, I had a front row seat to your ascendancy to become Speaker. I was a local radio guy in Atlanta, and I was emceeing the night you became Speaker. But prior to that, you had created a series. It was called Renewing American Civilization. It really was the foundation of ideas and solutions to make the country better. And I always argue that people ask me, I say, you're a professor and a historian at heart and not a politician, because I've known you, these couple of decades. You now basically are starting that role up again with Defending America. Real quick, tell us how people can join that class of yours.
Well, all they can do is just go to defendingamericacourse.com. Phase 1 is going to be 6 sessions. It's really on how to defeat the left intellectually, the arguments that allow us to remind people why America is unique, why American history matters, and why being patriotic is important. I think people will find that defendingamerica.com has some defendingamericacourse.com has some very, very good ideas on it. And you're right, it's part of something I used to do. I believe in teaching, and I believe in an informed citizenry.
All right, and we'll put it up on Hannity.com, my website. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. When we come back, we have a lot more on Hurricane Irma as it now continues on its destructive path towards the state of Florida. And later tonight, the Daily Caller, an investigation, an explosive report. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and a former IT aide, did the staffer, the IT aide, plant evidence on her to give to the cops? But first, President Trump struck a deal with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Laura Ingraham will weigh in on that, and, of course, Hurricane Irma. Straight ahead.
We had a great meeting yesterday with Nancy Pelosi and Senator Schumer, and it was a very bipartisan meeting. We could have done a longer deal, but that would have affected the military, as you know, so we really kept it for 3 months because of the military. We have a great respect for the sanctity of the debt ceiling, and Chuck does, and Nancy does, and we all do. So that will never be a problem. Debt ceiling will never be a problem.
That was President Trump earlier today talking about the deal that he made with congressional Democrats on the debt ceiling, which will prevent a government shutdown at the end of the month. And many Republicans are reportedly livid with the compromise. But didn't the president get to the White House? Didn't he promise to be a deal maker? Is this a good deal? Joining us now with reaction, editor-in-chief, Life Zet, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host. And I don't have enough time for the rest of the introduction. Laura Ingraham, who we all know. All right, before I get to that question, I want to get back to the hurricane issue.
Yeah.
Look, we believe in limited government. But the biggest criticism the left had was Melania's shoes, which was pretty despicable in and of itself. You know, I called over to the White House today. I found out they have pre-positioned troops, food, water, medicine, supplies, cots, blankets, baby formula. They have General Mattis ordered 4 Navy ships, and they have thousands of people on the call, on the ready right now. So where are we going with their criticism this time when government is actually working?
Well, the left and many Republicans, many never-Trumpers, Sean, are loath to recognize anything that works well in the administration. Except maybe if we're getting involved in another war, they'll be happy with that for some of the never-Trumpers. But other than that, they will not acknowledge, and nor should President Trump wait for, the acknowledgement that in the face of the worst natural disaster to befall our country, which it looks like this hurricane is going to be, the Trump administration did everything possible to coordinate on a federal, state, and local level and be prepared in a way that I think is really, it's admirable, it's smart, it's what government really should do at a time like this. But I don't think we should hold our breath waiting for any acknowledgement of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think President Trump cares about that at this point. He's worried about the people in South Florida, all the way to Tallahassee, to Gainesville. It's going to be a monster storm that hits all the way up to North
Savannah, it's going to the Carolinas.
Yep.
This is a scary moment. Hey, you would think that's what we want. We want to help out our friends in Texas, now our friends in Florida. We want them safe and secure. The fact that they, thank God we have, meteorology that can tell us storms like this are coming. And then, of course, we make the necessary preparations. Let me go to this compromise deal. I actually agree with Newt's analysis in that the president wanted to get the money to Texas, and that was a big part of his rationale and thinking. And with all due respect to Mitch McConnell, he hasn't exactly proven himself capable of doing anything because expectations are so high, especially on health care.
Yeah, Sean, all the caterwauling we're hearing from Republicans of, oh, woe is us, look, we're betrayed. Where was all of their concern and urgency over the last 6 weeks? They took off for the August recess. They went home. They did what they do at home. They went to some picnics and some state fairs, probably raised some money, took a little break. And at the time, I think the president begins to think, we got to get something done here. He wants to be a popular president. He is a conservative populist. That means at times, if Republicans don't deliver legislation that he can sign on the critical matters that he campaigned on, he's going to look to move the ball down the field with, another set of players. And sometimes it's going to be people that you and I don't like very much, we don't agree with on many issues, on an issue like the debt ceiling, which is a conservative concern, and rightfully so. But the president wanted to move this issue off the table and clear the deck for tax reform. If they do not get tax reform done, they're done. They're finished. And Paul Ryan came out today.
Listen,
he had an extra special spring in his step, I think, today on tax reform. It's funny what Trump working with the Democrats will do to the Republicans.
Who, McConnell? I didn't hear who you said.
No, Ryan had a little extra excitement about the tax reform.
I'm going to be fair. At least Ryan got the health care bill out of the House, and the Freedom Caucus worked hard with him, and they got it done at the end of the day. McConnell has no excuses, and the fact that he feels so much pressure and excessive expectations
and
is
Sean,
mind-numbing to me.
Yeah, when Charlottesville happened, these people are the first ones to give, on background or off the record sniping at the president. A lot of these people who are grousing now about Donald Trump. I mean, they're happy to say, oh, he doesn't understand how complex things are. He doesn't understand how difficult legislation is. And he comes along and says, you know something? If you don't work with me, I'm going to work with these other people. We're going to get something done.
Hey, listen, you hear the same thing. people like Ben Sass and Flake and John McCain, the things they say about him behind closed doors.
They hate Trump.
Okay. Laura Ingraham, great to see you. Thank you for being with us. All right, when we come back, an explosive report the mainstream media won't tell you about. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her former IT aide, did the aide plant evidence for the cops to find on Wasserman Schultz? But when we come back, first, we'll have more live reports on Hurricane Irma and the powerhouse storm as it continues to barrel towards the state of Florida and engulf the entire state. That's next.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm meteorologist Rick Reichmuth in the Fox Weather Center. We continue to track Hurricane Irma, and it is still an incredibly strong storm. In fact, the pressure has fallen a little bit over the last number of hours. That's not a good sign. You'd like to see that go up, to see a weakening storm. We don't have that. In fact, on satellite imagery, it's a really well-organized storm raking the Turks and Caicos right now. Very dangerous overnight. It's going to move throughout the area tonight, and then it's a future radar look at is a simulation of what we think the radar will look like, and that goes out across the Bahamas over the tomorrow afternoon, evening, and in towards the day on Saturday. I think we'll start to see a few bands move in towards South Florida around 24 hours from now by Saturday afternoon. Some very strong rain bands moving in. All of our models continue to pull off towards the northwest, and then this sharp right turn. Take a look at this coming into better agreement. Certainly the entire peninsula of Florida under the gun from this. One of the spots possibly looking at a direct landfall from this is in Key Largo. That's where we find our Adam Housley. Adam, how's it looking right there?
Well, Rick, because of those models, because of the information coming out of the Caribbean, because of the video we've seen in the last couple of days of the destruction, a lot of people here who rode out other hurricanes have decided to get out for the first time. In fact, Hurricane Andrew here 25 years ago, a number of people we met who were here and stayed here for that event decided to this time leave. We put our drone up a little bit earlier today to give you an idea how many people have already left the southern tip of Florida. In fact, the freeways down here are pretty wide open. North State, we're told, is much different. The Monroe County Commissioner, which covers the Florida Keys, says that people here really did listen this time. Take a listen. All right, so he basically says that people did see that video and people were worried about what they've seen in the information and decided to get out. So, of course, we'll keep you updated on everything with this hurricane over the next couple of days. Until then,
we are very well covered from the standpoint of bravery and talent. We have tremendous people there representing us, from the Coast Guard to FEMA to everybody else. I've spoken to Governor Scott on numerous occasions, and they likewise are very well prepared. To the people of Florida, we just want you to protect yourselves, be very, very vigilant and careful. Again, the governor is working very hard. FEMA, the Coast Guard, all of our people are very well prepared.
All right, that was President Trump earlier today assuring the people of Florida that the government is as prepared as possible for Hurricane Irma. Now, this, of course, could deliver a catastrophic strike on this state. Now, to give you a better idea of just how dangerous and destructive this storm is and could be, let's take a look at a couple of headlines. USA Today, Hurricane Irma has the potential of affecting every major city in the state of Florida. The New York Post, Hurricane Irma is the size of Texas. The Miami Herald, 2 South Florida nuclear power plants lie in Irma's path. Are they ready? And the Washington Post, U.S. military preparations for Hurricane Irma now include 4 Navy ships and thousands of troops. And the Daily Beast, Hurricane Irma, look at this, is stronger than all of 2017's other 8 Atlantic storms combined. Pretty scary. Joining us now on the phone is the mayor of Key West, Florida. Craig Cates is with us. First of all, Mr. Mayor, thank you for being with us. You're in a direct path here, and as the governor mentioned earlier in the program, you only have bridges in and out of your area, and that means it is evacuation time for everybody, correct?
Yeah, correct. There's about 40 bridges that connect Key West to the mainland and all the Florida Keys. So that being said, a lot of opportunity for one to get damaged and cut off all our supplies returning or evacuation. So that's why we started evacuation early, and it's continuing through the day and tomorrow.
Okay, really how important. When did you start the evacuation, and how soon do you believe that this enormous task will be accomplished?
Well, we started tourists on Wednesday morning, and then residents Thursday morning, and which goes on through tomorrow. We're running our bus services tomorrow, starting at noon today. All of our buses shuttling residents up to Miami to our shelter, which, as you had just talked about before, is very difficult on us because the hurricane could go into Miami also. But it's much higher ground than down here in the Keys, so it still will be a safer area, but not absolutely perfect scenario, definitely.
Mr. Mayor, are there any people resisting the evacuation, sir?
I've been here my whole life, fourth generation, and this is the first time that so many people have evacuated. They are definitely heeding the warnings. They've seen the power of this storm coming across there. They know what the 35 storm did to the Florida Keys, so people are taking this very, very serious.
All right, good job, sir, and our thoughts and prayers are with you, and, of course, all our